Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Tech Tuesday. I'm here with Genome, and I'm Genome. Today's Tech Tuesday is going to be about biotech, and we might have a guest joining us in moments. We'll see if he actually rocks up with pictures. He might be the one viewer that we have now. Just saying. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to talk about, like I said, biotech. Jannie, it's not as exciting as I thought it would be. I mean, I don't mean to undersell here. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be still a very interesting conversation. Don't go anywhere. But what I'm trying to say is, I was expecting, some information on zombies and how far we are from some kind of zombie outbreak, because we all know the Resident Evil kind of storyline where the T virus is created in a lab, it gets released, and then everybody turns into zombie. And Umbrella was trying to mask the T virus under this rejuvenation serum that you could take, that if you're old, then you take it and you just look younger, because humans are always looking to be or look younger or stay young. So that was the premise in a nutshell. And then the virus gets released, and then all hell breaks loose. BioTech, and then Resident Evil was experimenting with all these different viruses for biotech purposes and all that stuff. And it turns out I did find an article that says a zombie outbreak is possible, apparently. But that's the most exciting thing I found.
Yes, I mean, and it is exciting. I think it's just exciting in a different way. Because as you know, I just love researching stuff. Yeah. And it's always good to research something for a purpose, because you kind of commit to it a bit more. But I think before we dig into it, let's maybe just define biotech for the purpose of this discussion, because even in my knowledge of what I thought biotech was, I would not have defined it like this if somebody had to ask me to define it. And in the simplest of terms, biotechnology is the technology based on biology. It's as simple as that. It's a biotechnology where we basically harness cellular and biomolecular processes, and we use that to develop technologies and products that helps improves human lives, health, etc., etc. But it's essentially, for a 5-year-old, it is how can I put that? Messing with your Lego blocks. If we mess with your Lego blocks, you won't be able to build that car that you should have been able to build, or you get to build a monster truck. You don't know. It's one of those two things. So that's been certainly interesting. And there's certainly some really good use cases where biotech has been used in the last few years. And it's not, and when I'm saying the last few years, it's something that dates back 150 years about, So the thing that was interesting for me is, and we'll talk about the future, because I think there's this one thing that we are heading towards that we want to try and do in future. But we are not much further than what we were, 50 years ago with biotech, I think.
Sorry.
I don't. The tinfoil hat works. I think the tinfoil hat works.
I was addressing the question.
Oh, there we go. Hey, shut brother. So the thing is, though, with and if our guest joins, I'll let him talk to that a little bit. But biotech has certainly been in our lives for the last, good couple of years. But where it's been used, I think predominantly has probably been in agriculture, because we know that we have these genetically modified organisms, or GMO food products and stuff. But what I didn't know is that we only have GMO in 2 food products. So this thing where people are saying is our tomatoes and our apples and our bananas and everything is all GMO and it's going to make you sick and blah, 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 blah. Absolute nonsense. There is only 2 things that has been genetically modified that we eat, and that is soya and corn.
Those damn freaking, vegetarians. What?
Oh,
No,
on
no, no,
Netflix.
not vegetarians.
Oh,
What are they? The other guys, the ones that don't eat anything except for plants.
vegans.
Vegans. Those damn vegans with the soya. You see, I knew it.
Yes,
I
but
freaking knew it.
for the other things is, yes, we do have these perfect, grown veggies and things. And when I'm saying veggies, I'm excluding soya and mealies and whatever now, corn. But like, let's say tomatoes or apples or whatever. There's a specific word for it, and I forgot what the word is called now. But it's essentially something that I think even our dacha growing friends and marijuana growing friends would be doing. It's how they make that perfect plant. So when it comes to you getting these plant seeds that gets planted for tomatoes and whatever, that's actually grown in a lab where they make the perfect tomato and then another perfect tomato until they are able to create a copy of that with having a male and a female pair. And then you have constant clones of those seeds, and those seeds are what they then create and what they then sell. Our guests will be able to talk to the detail of that a little bit more.
Speaking about the guest, he has joined us backstage. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time on Tech Tuesday, please welcome our first guest of Tech Tuesday. Very honored and excited to bring on to the show. You've seen him before on my channel. Rebel made this shirt in his honor as well as other tobacco farmers across South Africa to support their cause in the fight against the evil NDZ and her just not letting go of this whole tobacco ban. But we're not going to talk about that tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I didn't know this. Apparently, he knows a lot about BioTech, so we decided to get him on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome to the show, Herman Ruas is back. Welcome, Herman.
Drum roll.
Thanks, Joe. Hi, guys. Hi, Joe, Jannie.
How you doing, Herman?
Nice to be on the show, guys. As I said earlier to Jannie, Joe, thank you. This is something that has been particular, especially in my industry. Very, very interesting thing that you're talking about tonight. BioTech. Me and Jannie had a conversation earlier. Where does these things come from? And the word you're looking for, Jannie, is called an F1 hybrid, which you and Joe and me are. We are what we call the perfect hybrid. Now, we'll get to BioTech in 2 seconds.
Yeah, that, Joe?
So we are zombies.
We're perfect. Basically, no, I heard perfect.
F1. Did they get that from like the F1 like racing kind of thing? Is that like?
I think the F1 racing sort of stole it from the guys. F1 just means it just means basically there's a Latin term for that. It means it's the first of when two parents comes together and breeds that offspring. It would be a human being, animal, or seed. That is the first offspring. And usually those two contain the strongest traits of the parents inside them, but also their weaknesses. And funny enough, I had to quickly go up a bit on BT gene, one of the genes that gives us resistance against worms in maize. Jannie mentioned it earlier, quite interesting, on the soybeans, the two genes that we currently know and have in. I know there's guys that's going to fall out of the tree and say this. Yes, there are more genes available. I'll read them quickly. But the two commonly known used gene splicing is the BT gene and the Roundup resistance gene that we use, the pesticide genes. Now, there are fatty acid composition and virus resistance genes in other plants they use, but it's not a commonly used GMO. All right. When we talk about GMOs, currently in use, there are 4, but 2 of them, one is in canola and one is in plums, are not quite readily used. All right. And then quite interesting, vaccines. Now, we know that with the Ebola virus, they used tobacco, for instance, to create a gene splicing where they created the vaccine from a specific tobacco plant. Then there's faster mutation gening that they are doing, type 1 growth hormones that they are inserting into salmon, fish, oral vaccines that comes from maize. but it's not work. These are not workable, and in vitamin enrichments that they are bringing into rice. But these things are not working yet. All right. So the two genes that work are currently in working, and they have been for the past 2 decades now, is the Roundup Ready gene and the BT gene, currently in corn and soybeans. Right. No other plants contains GMOs. Your vegetables that you are eating, your rice that you are eating, your fish that you are eating, your beef that you are eating, none of them contains GMO. It is only corn and soybeans at this stage, or maize and soybeans.
Maize is probably the better word. So I read something interesting, Herman, that there is I don't know exactly how they do it, but there's and I forgot the fish's name now, a salmon.
Yeah,
that
salmon,
is being, because salmon apparently only like breeds certain times of the year or whatever like that, like in certain times of months or whatever.
Yes.
So there is a genetically modified salmon out there. Maybe I shouldn't use that word like loosely like that, but one that breeds like all the time. So like unlimited salmon.
That's the one that I mentioned now. It's the faster mutation or the maturation, the type A type 1 growth hormone, gene injection. Once again, this is not a gene splice. We talked about earlier, like CRISPR. You physically inject something into the fish so that it matures faster, it breeds faster. I won't say that is GMO like we know it, or genetically modified organism, or BioTech. I think that is more like the hormones we use in chickens and beef cattle.
Like a growth hormone of sorts or something.
It's a growth hormone, yeah. So it's not physically altering the genetic modification of the fish at this stage. Probably in the future, yes, but not now. The tech is not there yet.
Yeah.
You sound like you want to alter the gene. The tech is not there yet, damn it.
Well, the thing is, how far are we off that tech though? Because if we look at it, I really thought until I started researching this, that some of this tech was actually a lot more readily available and accessible to people with money. To the point, it's probably accessible to people with money today anyway, but I think to the point that it is safely accessible, because, for instance, genetically, maybe I shouldn't use the word genetically modified, but let's call it genetically sequenced or something. Embryos, for instance, is not something that we can do yet. There's certainly countries like the Chinese that is putting all of their possible resources towards something like that, whereas there's ethical and fundamental differences from like the Americans about this particular topic, but it's not available yet. It's not.
Wait, didn't humans create or clone a sheep? I mean, doesn't that have something to do with the embryo?
Yeah, Dolly, but that is physically just taking the traits of the existing cell and just making it multiply on its own. Look, you must understand, when we're talking GMOs, when we're talking biotech in human beings, what people don't understand is you have haploid and diploid cells, all right? You are consisting of diploid cells. All right, meaning more than diploids, meaning two or more chromosomes. All right, haploids are one chromosome only. Plants are haploid. During a certain growth stage, they are haploid. All right, meiosis, when the sperm of the plant gets together and the fertigation takes place, it's a diploid, meaning it has more than one chromosome. But once it starts growing, it forms a haploid, meaning a cell with one. Once the cell starts multiplying, it forms a one chromosome cell. Now, during your growth as a child, your cells constantly multiplying, right?
Yes.
And those were all diploid cells, where in plants it's haploid. It is a single strand chromosomes. Now,
like an A and a B.
A and B. That's where Mendel's law comes in. And that's why why they could do a genetic modification with the Bacillus thuringiensis. I can't pronounce that word. Okay, the BT gene. Let's keep it short.
I can't pronounce the words you just said. Like, don't
Bacillus,
worry about it.
Bacillus bacteria.
It's not the Bluetooth gene, Joe. It's just the BT gene.
That's not the Bluetooth gene. But we'll call it for your personal property. We'll call it the Bluetooth gene. All right. And quite interesting. They realized that the Cry1AB gene Okay, now when I say cry 1AB, it means one capital A, small letter B. Now, Mendel, back in the old days, before we understood biotech and all these things, he realized that plants work on an A-B sequence, all right? Meaning a capital A means your mother had black hair and your father had blonde hair. Now, that's capital B. The dominant gene will be the capital A, which is black hair, right? The blonde gene doesn't go away. And now it rearranges itself. A, B, B, capital A, small letter B, capital B, small letter A. So it is constantly arranging itself in that formation. With each
You're
of these
reminding
letters,
me of my biology class right now.
that is exactly what
The
it
one
is. Now, they will stop
with the gummy bears, where the gummy bears are carved up like that, and you put the question.
Yeah. Now, quite interesting. During the meiosis, they found that if they could take the cry1AB gene, capital A, small letter B, and they could insert it into the corn gene, and it was accepting this cry1AB gene, which gave the plant resistance to worms attacking it. But now the worms got smart. Worms are eating those BT gene plants. They mutated against that gene, and dominant and recessive. That's thanks you. I've done this in Afrikaans, so if I make a mistake, guys, just please. I see Shaq Dwala he'll translate. Thanks, Shaq Dwala. And so within this sequence, but quite interesting, which very few people know, there's a disease in in bananas called the Panama disease, and at a certain stage, I couldn't remember what it was back in the 70s or 80s. The Panama disease was spreading all over the world, killing off bananas. All right. And in South Africa, they found a certain banana that was resistant to the Panama disease. And what they did is physically in the lab, they started growing this banana plant. And by using that gene technology that came, or the genes from that banana plant, they sort of did I think back then a rudimentary splicing of the banana, because you can put two banana pieces together and they can grow and interact. So today the bananas you are eating cannot die of the Panama disease. So that was basically, I think, where GMO actually started, was back when they first started with the bananas. But yes, quite interesting on that topic.
But that's an FN1, right?
Say again?
Banana. That's an FN1 banana.
F1, no. That was physically a gene. That was a laboratory created a thing that they used in the labs, and they grew a banana in the labs that was resistant to the Panama disease. And what they did is they used by crossbreeding. Now, this is quite interesting. Where you mentioned earlier, crossbreeding using parents to crossbreed. What they did is now they combined this plant that has this gene that's resistant to the Panama disease. Now they bred that into the other bananas, because you need to keep... Guys must remember, once you start working on biotech or technology within plants, it doesn't matter if you're breeding it in. We always have a saying: they can look beautiful, but they don't have any brains. All right, yeah. You can create the most beautiful person, but they don't have brains. And same as in technology, as I explained to Jannie earlier, if you put something good in, all right, there's a scale, always a balance. There's also something bad that's going to come out. Now, to explain to people easily, for instance, when you breed a tomato, all right, I have a parent that's resistant to, say, for instance, a bug, all right, and I have one that's susceptible. But both of them have traits I want, so I crossbreed them. Although I can, in a lab, splice the genes together, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a tomato that comes out in the lab. Sometimes something totally a different plant comes out. Remember, because you're screwing with the natural order of the plant's DNA structure. Right. So once they've grown something in the lab, they first need to take it back and crossbreed it again into the original plant. to make sure that that gene is transferable between the original species.
I see.
And that's why you have
Interesting.
bananas that taste like apples.
Basically.
But I saw something the other day of companies. I don't know if I told you the story, Joe. There's companies that's obviously now, because of like a lot of companies adopting work from home now, and a lot of floor space that's going unused. There's these companies that's starting like micro farms within business buildings, and they're using UV light and whatever. And the fact that the building is sealed, so there's no outside interference with like, bugs and worms and whatever that doesn't obviously occur naturally, but they can change the taste of lettuce based on the frequency of UV light they use to grow that lettuce. Now, I don't say a lettuce tastes like a cheeseburger. I'm just saying like the lettuce could probably be like cheap, could probably be like sweeter or whatever. But I mean, that was interesting because like I was asking the question, like what is happening with all these companies giving up their floor space and whatever? And there was these people starting these microfarms within big buildings. It's pretty interesting. But Herman, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I don't want to stay on the topic, obviously, of agriculture too long, but talking about the tobacco and stuff like that, do you have the same challenges that what we have with other crops like soya and maize and stuff in tobacco as well, in terms of like, these worms and all kinds of things?
Yeah.
Or
Look,
do you go stock standard crop spraying for that?
Because in tobacco, you must remember, within certain groups of agricultural products, like your foodstuffs, certain foodstuffs, tobacco one, there is a law, within the Coresta, there's a rule that you're not allowed to use GMOs in tobacco, because you can modify a plant up to what you want it at eventually at a stage. All right. We can create the perfect plant that has the right nicotine levels, that has the perfect leaf, that has everything. The problem is by creating this plant also, now we must look at the negative of all these GMOs. And that is why GMOs is also not exploding into the market of agriculture, is you can create this perfect plant within 10 years to 2 decades. The problem is, will it become a nuisance within nature? All right. So in tobacco, because it is actually a weed, tobacco is a weed in nature. We have to we are breeding our own selections. All right. So physically, we'll start with a F1 hybrid. Then we'll select from the F1 the best plant. We'll have that plant crossbreed itself, because the plant naturally fertigates itself or fertilizes itself. And then we'll select from that one, and it can take up to 8 to 10 years before we have what we all call a variety that is acceptable nicotine levels, leaf quality. As I said, we can create the perfect plant, but it doesn't have brains. Now, in the tobacco, we need the perfect plant with brains. Right, so
it's interesting that you mentioned that tobacco is a type of weed, or considered a weed in natural habitat.
Yeah.
I somehow picture people that have watched or that are going to watch this stream now go in their backyard and pick all the weeds out of their garden and dry it out. And
this smells like
sorry.
So, Herman, do you then basically make seeds of that?
Yeah.
And that's what you plant your crops with?
Yeah, look, we have a special, we have guys in South Africa, two people in South Africa that specializes in crop development for tobacco. And the same is with the vegetable companies, guys like Monsanto. We all think Monsanto is bad. We have Pioneer and these guys that are constantly K2 is Klein Karoo Saad. These guys are constantly working on hybrids. Today we are more working towards the F1 hybrids, because, as I said earlier, when you bring two parents together, as a F1, you have the best traits of both parents. It's once you start crossbreeding again with that you can bring in these bad habits. And it's also cheaper to create F1 hybrids. Guys must remember, once you start using technology, BioTech, and start gene splicing, and we bring in all this great, amazing stuff, we are talking billions. of dollars. The cost to bring the BT gene in, I think if you guys can go and Google it, I think it costs like over 100 million just to do the research onto that BT gene, how to splice it into corn. Right. So the cost is so enormous, and you need to protect that IP of that thing, because people can steal. The Chinese have done it before, and since cut this out because I might not go to, they have done it before where they have stolen this technology.
You only have to worry about Putin, you don't have to worry about the Chinese.
No, but he goes to China a lot. Like Mr. Ruiz.
Let's cut this conversation. We'll have this one. So what they do is the cost to develop this type of technology is so expensive that it doesn't always be the turnover that they will eventually make out of the selling of the seeds isn't in Afrikaans sê ons die kool is nie die sous werk nie. It's not feasible to bring this in. So I think
what we will see worth the squeeze.
Yeah, the juice is not worth the squeeze. So I think in the future, up until such time that biotech is becoming cheaper, and although it is every year, it's becoming cheaper. I think, yeah, that's true. Yeah, and there's actually Shakwella, there's actually the lawsuits that's going on between farmers and Monsanto and these guys. There's actually rules that you have to keep to make sure that you don't have what we call a BT gene resistance within the corn. So they are very, very strict on protecting this IP. So yeah, that's basically it. I don't see in the foreseeable, yeah. Oh, that's Mikal. Thanks, Mikal. Yeah, put on your tin hat. I don't have one. I'll put my pack of cigarettes on my head. Maybe my tobacco will protect me.
Yeah, and you put your drink on your head.
I've got nothing.
Yeah.
But talking about that, Herman, you mentioned something interesting now is how much money this costs, because I was watching a documentary earlier about biohackers, and there's a group of people probably around the globe that have this movement that is essentially biologists or biotech people, whatever, doctors, I don't know what to call them. That's kind of like working outside of traditional labs, and they don't use things like clinical trials, etc., to test a lot of this tech, and they are also pushing quite heavily to democratize this biotech type of technology, especially where people use something like CRISPR, which apparently isn't that hard to do if you know what you're doing. You could like do this in your garage type of thing, which is like very dangerous. So it's apparently very hard to get funding in some of these things. So I don't know how a lot of this funding is received, but also there's in the US specifically like a lot of federal policies or whatever, I don't know, that's very much against this very specific thing in terms of how CRISPR is applied to human beings, because like you say, there isn't that, it's not possible to create that ideal human being. But I've seen some of these biohackers literally on camera try stuff on themselves. And yeah, you don't know yet, because you said there's every good, there's bad, right? So you don't know when the bad's going to happen, I guess.
Yeah. Once you start messing with your chromosomes and your DNA, and now that is basically, we get back to Mendel's law. We get back to what Charles Darwin said, and I think there's now a lot of people going to go crazy. I actually agree with Darwin on also on the law, and people don't quite understand it. I do not agree with his religious views, but I do agree with his science, and his science was dead on. Mendel himself, at his stage, when he was a monk working in a monastery, doing the research on peas, Mendel was way out of line, if you think on, but the science behind it was sound. Now, this is the problem I have. Human beings, our chromosomes and telomeres are very intricate, and people should understand we are diploid cells. how do you change the intricacy of 23 to 36 chromosomes? I think we have 38 chromosomes. I'm not, if I'm correct. But to change one chromosome is already difficult. To just put one BT gene in, how are you going to edit on more than 2 chromosomes? Which exact gene particle in that telomere are you going to cut out and replace? And the thing is it hereditary? Now, here's the question. We can inject you, Jannie, with everything, and here's Jannie, he's a universal soldier. Brilliant, strong. But the question is, will that edit of your genes be hereditary to your children? And if it is, what will be the negative effect of that hereditary transference to your children? You know, we know something like Alzheimer's is a genetic transference. Now I edit Alzheimer's out. But by changing that specific part, now when your wife and you get together and you have little baby Jannie, you've been edited. Your wife still carries the bad side of the genes. What will be the hereditary effect of the BBAA combination? What are we screwing up there? Yeah. Now,
so here's the thing, though. Sorry, go for it.
No.
So here's the thing, though. So I think that's probably one of the areas that's still quite interesting in terms of how artificial intelligence is applied to this, because I think it was Outbreak. Was it Outbreak? It was that movie in like the mid-90s with the monkeys that had that virus, whatever, somewhere in Africa. And somewhere in that movie, they were trying to find like this vaccine or something for it, right? And they were continuously processing.
Yes.
Remember, they were like processing on the screen. They were like processing these like gene structures, and then it keeps on failing until they eventually have that match. And I think that's kind of like what you're talking to now. It is that when you're trying to mess with that structure, that just doing it in your garage is probably not the best thing to do, because there is so many iterations that needs to run for you to get that perfect combination that you don't kind of like kill yourself in a way or something. So that for me is probably interesting, because obviously the moment you start looking at biotech and the future of biotech and things, AI kind of like comes up quite a bit. And that's still something that's very hard to explain, because in one of these things I saw they used photo samples of I forgot, what's that little part that connects your eye to your brain? Not the cornea.
It's not the cornea.
Oh, yeah, that nerve. That
little nerve at the back.
Yeah.
So they gave this AI 400 pictures of that optic nerve or whatever, right? And they were trying to pick up early on blindness or something. But what the AI picked up in addition to that was it could determine from that, without giving it the information, it could determine gender.
Wow.
Like, that's freaking scary, right? So, but having said that, though, AI is still something that is very much used now, and I forgot the word for it. There's a specific neural AI that's being used in biotechnology that is used to process these iterations of what Herman was talking about. Because I think the end result where we want to be, if we want to talk about 50 years from now, or let's say 2050, let's say 30 years from now, it's not going to be, I think, what we do today. I don't think it's going to be the organic approach we have today with taking the existing genetics of things and splicing it and dicing it and trying to get to that elite version we want to get. We're going to create it from scratch. That's probably going to be the best way to do it. The problem is that's a lot harder than we think, is having a blank slate, a blank sheet, and creating that DNA from scratch.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's like, but now we get into the ethical challenge here, which is if we start doing
This is the
that,
dark side.
we're a lot of people will be screaming at their screens watching this and be like, now you're playing God. You cannot be God. You cannot create from scratch and play God. It's wrong.
But
Sorry, I don't
hang
know.
on,
But are we not already doing that with everything else that we're doing? Doesn't matter how we get to the answer.
Hang on, but a single cell organism is creatable. If you look at something like the amoeba, all right, amoeba is a single cell organism. It doesn't have a brain, a virus. Now, we say a virus is not alive, but it's still a single cell
It's
organism.
not dead either, but it's weird, yeah.
It's not
It's a
dead
ghost.
either. It's a single cell organism, all right. But the virus has the capability of implanting into your RNA structure and screwing with your cells. And now this is quite interesting. If a single cell organism is able to screw with your RNA structure to replicate itself, I do think that in 50 years' time, we might be able to use single cell organisms, as you say, Jannie, to be the start of building blocks for new DNA. But we still, I
Interesting.
think, we will still need the organic compound. But as AI is evolving, AI might be able to explain how a telomere and a DNA strand, a chromosome, should be interacted and built. Look, there are talks of storing data on DNA. I
Yeah,
think
that's
your
interesting,
body
eh?
can store that. Yeah, I think what they can in one DNA strand or one telomere, they can store like how many gigabytes of data can be stored on one DNA strand. That is the question we have to get to, Jannie, and this is where you come in as a tech wizard. The ethical for me is I don't want to be a walking USB stick, plugging my finger into a computer and literally doing the computing. But with that technology, I think we will be able in the future maybe to solve problems like famine on the world. We might be able to create genetically enhanced plants that can take the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere faster, which will be much more beneficial to human beings. But, and here's the big but, Jannie, and you spoke about it, people are playing with these things in their garages. All right. Once you start playing with these things
Resident
outside
Evil
of
is
the norm,
starting to come up now.
yes. And this is where the question of morality, why does science have rules? All right. Once you start working with genetics, and I'm referring back to agriculture, once you start doing plant breeding, there are certain rules that you need to follow, because you don't want a plant that becomes a weed, or you don't want a plant that becomes resistant to certain chemicals that eventually you cannot destroy it. And we already have that because of the Roundup Ready gene. Some of these, if you drive through the Free State, you'll see some of these fields, the maize are standing knee high in the mid of winter. Now, 40 years ago, how? Because it's the Roundup Ready gene and the BT gene that's in them. Now you have to use, but because they are still susceptible to other herbicides that can kill them, so the farmer can still kill them. And that's where the thing is. Now I'm busy here in my garage. Jannie has the AI, I have the savvy of the bio, and we create the perfect corn plant. Man, and we sell it. Yes, we democratization of biotech. Aren't we? We've played God. Now we've created this, building it up from the ground, what we think a maize plant. But hereditary, whatever you eat, you become. Remember, those are still DNA going into your stomach. We don't think of
That
that.
brings up interesting points. I want to ask a question about that later, but okay, go.
Yeah. Vitamins are building blocks, all right? But also we can carry DNA over into our bodies. We've seen that with bacteria, we've seen that with viruses. But what we are eating is physically a DNA strand, all right? You can still carry that over into you. And if it is hereditary, the fact that it can be carried in over to you, that splicing that we have done in our backyard lab if that can cause a genetic mutation within humans, right? Now, to give you an idea, we have a thing called allelopathy. Allelopathy. I don't know what it is in English. If somebody can help me, allelopathy. What it means is that a plant excretes a certain chemical around it, all right? And it will destroy the seeds of other plants to stop other seeds from germinating around it to protect itself, all right? Now, if we build this plant up from the ground, as you say, with the building blocks of AI, what if this plant has allelopathy that has the ability to destroy everything around it? And it becomes the only living organism. Question that you should ask.
So agreed.
Sorry, to explain to people, sorry, Jannie, just to explain, the blue gum tree that we have in South Africa. Have any one of you stood under a blue gum tree? Did you notice there's nothing growing below it?
I don't even know what a blue gum tree is.
It's a gum tree that's blue, Joe.
Eucalyptus.
I know gum tree on the internet.
Okay, it's a eucalyptus.
It's green, and you buy PlayStations and TVs and shit off of it.
Okay, a eucalyptus tree. Koalas eat it. The koala go and nom 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 nom. Joe?
Yeah.
Only difference is we don't have koalas. Yeah, eucalyptus. Eucalyptus africanus. Also pines. Because this happens in South Africa, eucalyptus has kills everything that grows around it in South Africa. Also the pine trees, I see, as they said, because it's not native to South Africa, right? It's become as an indringer species. I don't know what an indringer species. Somebody help me, please.
It's it's an import.
But in nature, natural habitation plants will work in symbiosis with each other. All right. Grass will grow, the thorn tree will grow, the mushroom, which is a fungus, will grow. It will secrete a certain spore, which contains a certain element of antibiotics, which helps the thorn tree not becoming sick. All right. So that's symbiosis. But now, what if we create this one genetic plant, Jannie, that can kill everything, even human beings, without noticing? Although we can look at AI with the perfect building blocks, we still don't know what the organism is capable of. That's my question.
Because, and I think onto that point, Herman, is I think there's a few things I want to mention, and I'll get to the question that I wanted to ask because I think it stems from me and Joe's stream last week. But essentially, we are talking about the circle of life when it comes to a lot of these things. It's not just, the circle of life when it comes to Lion King. It's about the circle of life about everything, about plants, the birds, that whole cycle that kind of like happens there. And we're now messing with that. And I don't think it ever, doesn't matter how we are messing with that, do we look at that complete circle? Because in that example, even how risky would it be if you think about it, and sorry if this is a bad example, but like the food we eat might be okay for us, but then we poop, and that poop goes to the poop house where they clean the water. And there's a special process there that they use with like special chemicals that cleans the water. But now you can't clean that water anymore because those chemicals are now not cleaning this new poop that it gets, right? So like this problem can stretch very far when it comes to us messing with the cycle of life.
We're talking about BioTech. Now, one of the oldest, what we call it, pills, birth control pills, all right, that women use, estrogen, for instance. Now, estrogen is a natural compound, all right? If you look at estrogen in nature, every plant contains estrogen because that's what we use to do a ripening effect, all right, in various forms, all right? But once estrogen was used as a birth control, all right, that seeped into our waters and it started affecting human beings to such an extent that in London, in the Thames River, the amount of estrogen that is in the water due to the using of the pill, boys are now becoming girls.
Say what?
Yeah, Google it.
Like born girls? Or
No, They are
I've
growing.
read this
They
somewhere.
are
I've read this
growing
problem somewhere.
at the age of 10, 12, they are becoming girls. They are, I don't want to use the words, the ladies might kill me.
Okay, but
boys
it's
are growing
because of
No,
the.
okay, wait. We can do this scientifically. Are you saying that males that are born with male genitalia at the
Grows
age
boobs.
at the age of
Yeah.
like puberty, basically, when
Yeah,
they hit
grows boobs.
puberty, they start developing female
The breasts. They
attributes?
start, because of the high doses of estrogen.
Wow.
And that is how people are doing sex changes. They start taking high doses of estrogen,
Yes.
and then
yes.
they go through exactly. And the Vaal River is one of the places where the highest concentration of estrogen is currently found.
Where's the
So
ball
water
river?
is bad for you. It's up
Don't-
north here from us.
Yeah, don't
Okay,
drink the water
so-
in Cape Town as well.
Northwest.
Don't drink
Around
the
your
water in
city.
Cape Town as well.
Joe,
What if?
Coke and brandy.
Wait, hold on.
Coke and
what-
brandy, Joe. Coke and brandy.
As the Afrikaans coming out. What about water that you get from like a company that you know those water jugs that you put on a cooler? Like Yanni, you have one, that small one that's in your
Yeah.
bar. Yeah. What do you call those things?
Nah,
Water dispensers.
Depends on where your water source is. That's the point. We don't know.
Yeah,
where
but the
water
thing is, I think here is, Herman, is I think the water treatment processes isn't able to take hormones out of the water.
You can't.
It's there
You
to
can't.
take.
And that's my question with BioTech, Jannie, and that's what we talk about. As I said, I love the science behind it. The intricacy of cells, the human beings, plants, how we are connected. If you look at plant cells in itself, you have different types of cells. You have parenchyma and sclerenchyma cells. But once you start screwing with hormones, once you start screwing with BioTech, start doing the engineering, bringing that AI in, bringing that lab equipment in, what are we eventually putting back into nature? And I've just mentioned now the estrogen is one compound, all right, that is becoming a huge problem. But this is the question, Jannie. What is your thoughts? And Joe, what is your thoughts? My question to you guys, what is your thoughts on the darker side of what we can expect? Because we have to look at both sides of the coin here, guys. As good as it is, yes, we can do an operation from America in Paraguay, Charlotte Mocheke. Oh, sorry, Charlotte Mocheke burned down. But sorry,
It's not funny, I know.
Sorry,
It's not funny, I know, but
I'm nasty.
Why are we laughing? Like when you anyway, moving on. To answer,
but I hear what Herman is saying. Go for it, Joe.
Where's the moral part of this? Like, when is? And I think that's a constant trend between Jannie and I. Like Yanni's very advocate. He advocates for tech and the future of tech and all the new things that are coming. And I'm always the guy that, I love tech myself, but I'm always like, okay, but what about the bad side of this? What about the bad side of this? And I do think that BioTech has it. It is probably it could be the downfall of humankind, and that might sound a bit dramatic, but if we look at all these movies that are based on biotech accidents and stuff like that, Resident Evil being one, or the game that came from that. These are as crazy as it might sound to some people. The thing is, we are tampering at the moment. We're tampering with plants. We're changing certain things in plants. We're making them better. Then it moves on to cloning. Then it moves on to, creating a new species. Then it moves on to, like Jannie said, okay, we're going to get to a point where we're going to start with a clean slate and be able to create whatever it is we want. And then we start playing God. And that's when I'm like, there's going to be a very bad side effect. There's going to be a very bad side effect. It's not even about going too far. It's about, there's, like Herman's saying, there's a side effect to this that we won't see coming, and it could be disastrous. And it could be from, even if it's not creating something from scratch, maybe like we were talking now, AI and building on the AI and making it smarter. And then it just decides to kill all the plants. I mean, imagine that. Imagine we create a plant for the good. We think it's going to be for the good of mankind, but then it ends up killing certain other plants, which then affects the ecosystem, which will have disastrous effects on every species, not just the humankind. And that for me is something that I think these scientists that are in their garage and these people that are taking science into their own hands need to think about very
that's
carefully.
where the principle of science comes in. Once you start doing these type of experiments, as I said, we have laws controlling and conducting which you have to keep to. Whatever you do in the lab, you cannot just take it outside and put it into your garden and think it will grow. There are certain containment areas that you have to go. If you go to the universities, even when they are doing hybrids, all of these crossbreeds, because it's a new variety of a species. All right, like I'm referring to tobacco. It's a Solanaceae tobaccoana variety LT93. All right, LT93 is completely a new subspecies variety of its own. Although, remember, it's part of the Solanaceae family. We don't know what if it's capable of crossbreeding with, say, my neighbor's tomatoes. So, although we know it won't happen, but the possibility is always there that there might be a crossbreed between a certain family species or family of species. So you have to conduct all of these experiments to keep the environment safe, not just and also humanity. All right, because if this thing can jump between within a family, between two species within the same family, you have a major problem on your hands. All right, that is why if you crossbreed a donkey and a zebra, you get a zonkey. It is sterile. All right.
Really?
It's a funny looking animal. It's a donkey. Looks like a donkey with zebra stripes. It is very funny, but it's not impossible because they're of the same family, but they're two different species. All right. So you have to be very careful once you start doing these things. And where's that point where you are going to cross the line? If it's becoming an interspecies crossbreeding, is it sterile when it does a interspecies crossbreed? And if it's not, you have to destroy it because then it's a new species on its own. And what is the risk of it? So I'm not for the BioTech garage guys. All right.
Yeah, I agree with that, Herman. I think BioTech, to me, certainly, like I said to Joe earlier when I spoke with him, researching this topic kind of gave me a different perspective on it because I think BioTech carries probably the most risk out of all the science fields at the moment because of what's possible. And I don't want to blame BioTech for it. I think I want to blame tech in general because technology, unfortunately, is becoming so accessible to us as individuals that it's possible for you to do cool stuff in your garage. And I saw a comment earlier, and I agree with that, though. It won't be the first time something cool didn't get created in one of our garages, and that's fine. But the challenge here is where is the rules and regulations about some of these things? And like you say, Herman, when you do create this new species of something, it's scary. I'll share with you guys the video that I watched, a short little 20 or 30-minute documentary about these biohackers. It's scary. If you think about varsity kids in a house, you know what a varsity kid's house looks like. It's, beer bottles and this and that and whatever. In between all of that, there's science kits or whatever. And these guys are isolating and sequencing stuff that they then put together in these kits that they sell. Like, I don't know where the I don't know what the right word for it is, but not the quality assurance, but certainly there's some regulations to this or something, though, right? And it's not there. So it's either, like that's just scary, because that leads me to my question that I actually want to ask and to Joe and Herman. Because Joe asked this question last week. Do we have a risk of creating this? Last week it was a nanobot that could cure cancer. I mean, I know they're looking at gene sequencing to cure cancer as well, which would be great. But what if we had this gene that you inject, that you eat, that is sequenced in a way, that's programmed in a way that you consume it, and then it goes to the human body because it's been taught to do that, that does something bad, like that kills people, or that makes us into zombies or whatever. That doesn't matter. But would it be possible, if not now, in some future, that we could eat something that could be the spreader of, like a biovirus or something?
We can, because
Like eating
we're
a
already
bat.
there. Yanni, if you look at
Like
the
eating
BT
a-
gene,
A bat.
like
Eating a bat. Oh, right.
Yeah, that is what we call natural. Well, that is just a jump between species, and that happens every day. That's the freaky part about this whole thing. Interspecies jumps of viruses and bacteria and fungi happens on a daily basis. You wake up one morning, your toe is a bit blue, and you have like a mold on it. You go and you put on some cream. You might have had a interspecies fungal jump without you knowing it. All right, so it happens. That's
I feel
nature.
violated now.
That's the law. That's the law of nature. It happens. But now what Jannie is getting down to, and this is what scares me about this whole thing of biotech. We understand the human cells. Jannie said earlier, kids are sequencing, splicing genes, extracting genes, things that was inaccessible to the general public 10, 20 years ago because of the expenses of that equipment. Remember, as a kid, where was the only place you could find a microscope? Jannie?
A school lab or
Exactly.
something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Today, if you compare those old school lab microscopes to what you can buy off Amazon for $200, those are
USB
ancient
connects to your
dinosaurs.
PC, whatever.
And the magnification of those things are amazing. So it is the accessibility to the technology that's the problem, not the technology. And that is always the problem. If you think carefully, you can actually, Jannie, by using 2 brain cells and a half, you can build a nuclear bomb in your house.
Don't give
not that
people
difficult.
ideas. Don't give
All right.
people ideas.
I'm not giving people, we're talking reality here.
What does this wire do?
Yeah. So, yes, Jannie, we're already at that point. When you are eating the BT corn, it contains the BT gene. All right. Can it happen that we can splice in, for instance, a virus, in a specific protein of a virus into a plant that will give us the perfect protection against certain elements of nature, pests and pests and things, but eventually that protein can change. It can cause a mutation that eventually can kill people. Yes, it can. But that is where science comes in. All right. Monsanto and these guys are constantly monitoring these plants. They physically go into the field, they pull out plants, they send it back to the lab, analyze the situation. And that's where this
random farmers' plants and stuff.
Yes, if they know, because you have to sign a contract when you buy the seed, so they know who owns who planted this BT gene.
I heard about that. Yeah.
And that's not just to screw up the farmer. All right. On the one side, me as a farmer, I think I'm screwed. Yes, I am, because I'm a farmer. I think like that. But in reality, there's certain rules and regulations. They must make sure that BT gene does not change something eventually. Something can go wrong in the lab. Something can go wrong through the hereditary effect. All right. So, yes, but if we build something in the lab, me with as I said, with my microscope, you with your AI. Jannie, it's not difficult. If you have 2 brain cells and a half, with the right tech of Amazon, I think we can. Might take us 2 years.
That's scary.
3 years. We can.
That's
the reality.
All right, so I do want to address some of the comments that are coming through at the moment. So we've got Lars Sarles, who says you can buy a microscope that clips on your phone camera for 200 Rand, which is at 160 times 160 magnification.
Yeah.
And that's just for your phone. Yeah, I know that you can buy even stronger microscopes off of Amazon and stuff like that. Mark saying that he's confluxed. Nano is the greatest threat to human life. Machines at the nuclear level changing things. These boys are confused.com. I'm not sure what he means by these boys are confused.com, but we discussed nanobots and all that in the last stream. I don't necessarily want to touch on it on this stream, so please go check out the previous stream, Mark. We were two minds about it. And then I'm not going to address that comment. And then some of the guys to the earlier comment that the comment that came in, Jannie, that you saw about great things were created in a garage. Look, just because iPhone or Apple was created in a garage doesn't mean everything else that's created in a garage is going to be amazing. Yeah. I know it's not what you meant. I know it's not what you meant. I'm saying the comment. I'm the comment that came through. I'm not addressing you. I'm addressing the comment.
But I want to say something on that. Sorry, Joe. So there was a weight loss drug developed a few years ago.
What are you trying to say?
That actually helped you stop smoking. Right. So, you develop something for one thing and then you get something else. So, I mean, that's kind of like what I mean. It's not the first time that you think you're developing this and then, oh crap, it actually does this.
Viagra?
Yeah.
If you apply that to the bad, it's like,
Viagra was actually a high blood pressure pill.
That is true. That is true. That is very true.
But luckily, these things are like good things, I guess, But
you can also say the same thing for contraceptives. Like the pill has, in some cases, some women has hectic side effects, like severe headaches. Their menstrual cycle is completely off. And will have it for long periods of time when it's actually supposed to regulate it. There are immense side effects of some of these things when you start, like we said, messing with hormones and genes and all that stuff. And that's what I'm saying. Like sometimes things that are made in a garage, yes, you're going to have some that are like brilliant and it's going to like advance humankind and it's going to be the best thing since sliced bread. But then you also will have the ones that are mad scientists and maybe miss something. The effects of which will only be seen years down the line. It's not a quick thing, and then sometimes that's how it is with science. We might have a quick, we make a pill, and then everybody feels great, like, oh, it cures everything. Like you're gonna feel amazing if you take this pill. It's gonna make your mind quick. It's gonna make you're gonna be smarter. You're gonna be able to like digest all this information, and you'll remember it, and it's gonna be amazing. But then 20 years of you using this pill, we realize, oh crap, you're dying younger than had you not used that pill. You know what I mean? Like those are certain things we only
in your genes and the genes of your kids and whatever, and screwed up the next 200 years.
Yeah,
that scares me, Joe. If you look at medicine that we have today, all right. I explained it earlier to Jannie. If we look at something like hydroxychloroquine, which has been in the news now lately due to the whole thing that's going on over the world. Now, chloroquine in its natural form is found in bark of a plant. For the love of me, I can't remember the plant. Now, what happened was in Indonesia, they found when the first British sailors went to Indonesia, they got malaria. The locals were drinking this tea out of this bark and they were cured of malaria. It was called devil's bark by the Catholic Church. Actually, interesting. And eventually a scientist from Britain, I think, isolated the chloroquine molecule. And they found that they can make this in the lab. And the same with paracetamol and most of the medicines that you have today. It is either something that was naturally taken and the molecules were sequenced out of that and manufactured in a lab. But now we are getting to a point where AI is actually dictating. I think you're right, Jannie. For the love of me, I think you're right. And AI is now, Jannie, and you're more into this. They can actually now start creating molecules that doesn't exist. All right. There are now currently experiments on pesticides and herbicides that look. Most of your herbicides and pesticides are some form of natural combination of molecules. All right. Which is either a carbon hydroxide combination or a amino acid combination. All right. And it contains isomerical salts or something in between. Something that was actually natural was just combined. All right. But now the problem is, what if we start creating these pesticides and herbicides from AI, which doesn't exist? And that is now being experimented with in labs. Maybe and that's the dark side of it. Now we're talking chemicals. Yes, a pill that I swallow for a virus, and that's coming. I do believe that is coming. That will edit my gene technology, not nanobots and nanotech. A pill that I swallow, chemically changing everything that I need, changing organically what is through a chemical. Now we have done that in the past. In organics, organic compositions, you can take certain chemicals and you can change your organic compound that it does have a different attributes. All right.
Yeah.
To give you a simple explanation of that, leather as it is, we know it comes from animal skins, but the compound that leather is in itself is not an animal skin anymore. It's a different compound because the chemicals that was added actually destroyed certain values of the original animal skin. All right. Because animal skin, when it's dry, it's hard. It's non-flexible. It breaks.
Yeah, no, it's treated. Yeah.
It's treated, but the chemical compound, we have already done that. How far down the line are we now, Jannie? That's the question I want to ask you. How far down the line from leather treating animal skins to become leather? How far are we past that point?
So, well, Harman, I read about this company. It's a startup in the US. It's called Vixtricine or something like that. VIX cystine. But essentially, what they are doing is because we can't transfer the human brain into a computer, the tech doesn't exist. It's except for a brain-computer interface. We don't have the tech today to map the human brain. There is 86 billion, neurons in the human brain that we need to map out perfectly to copy your brain to a computer, and that is currently envisaged at something like, zettabytes of data, if probably not even more. So
yes, what you're talking about is mind uploading, basically. The possibility
so
to mind
there's this
upload.
company that's currently working on, obviously, dead bodies, because nobody will survive this, but they inject your brain with some form of a formaldehyde or something that crystallizes your brain, and they can then, with absolute high resolution, take like a 3D scan of your brain, and then that scan, use AI to map that out, and then try and recreate your brain digitally after the fact. But yeah, I don't know how successful they've been, and obviously,
well, here's the thing:
survives this.
If they get to the point where they do figure out a way where they can do it when you're alive, to map out your brain and then digitalize it so that it's like now in gigabytes, right? Which is probably going to be a huge amount of gigabytes, because you're talking memory, personality, DNA traits.
They're talking in excess of zettabytes. So you've got giga, tera, peta, exa, zettabytes. It's
zettabytes, right?
The brain is amazing storage device.
Imagine. And I want to know in the comments below, because I was hoping we'd get to this topic. This is something that fascinates me. Not that I'm for it necessarily, but it fascinates me that you can put basically your brain on a USB or a hard drive and then plug it into a machine, and then boom, Joe. Now I would feel like Joe. Jannie would feel like Jannie. Herman would feel like Herman. You'd have all the memories. You'd have everything. Your conscience, your everything that makes you would exist in this machine. Now, I want to know in the comment section below, how do you guys feel about that? Are you for it or are you against it? Just say for or against in the comment section. Let us know. We'll come back to you. Herman, what do you want to say?
Yeah, that's the beauty of the human body. And once you start looking into the science of the creation of human cells, all right, looking down into, as I said earlier, we're looking at DNA strands, we're looking at telomeres, we are looking at cells on a microscopic level. Now, that is what is creating your neurosynapses, or cells, all right. it is an intricate system, just your body alone, not your brain. All right. I do not believe in the foreseeable future, 50 years, 100 years from now, that we will be able to create a machine system that we can plug into, as you say, and I will feel myself. Maybe in a virtual reality, but the reality of emotions. At this stage, I do not think, because the human biology is so intricate, we explain it as cells and a few things, all right, and editing with CRISPR here and cutting there. But a living organism is probably one of the most intricate systems that you will find, and I believe for on Earth, because it's one of these systems that couldn't have, up until now, they couldn't replicate it. They can clone it, but they can't replicate it from scratch. And that is the thing. I do not think a cold steel circuits will ever be able to give you a human experience. And that is where I do believe biotech is going to slip, and it's going to kill a lot of people, in my opinion.
Well, I think you misunderstand a little bit, because I'm not saying that we're going to be uploaded to like this rusty bucket that is going to be moving in like this. Obviously, then we won't feel like ourselves.
No. I know. I understand exactly what you mean.
But I'm saying that I think that if we have the tech to upload our brains and our conscious to a USB, if we have that tech, then whatever they're going to put us in is, I mean, let me put it for you this way. At the moment, there are robots out there, right, that move, they jump, they flip, they do all these things. It's very crude. Like, let's be honest, very crude. We had a robot on the other show that could pee a beer into a cup. Jannie was very excited. And and so at the moment it's crude. But let's say, like you said, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I definitely don't think that. I think we're in the infancy of this tech. And if it is going to happen, it's not going to happen in any one of our lifetimes. Maybe even 2 generations still away, 50 to 100 years. But when it does happen, I think the time when it does happen, when this is a possibility, it's going to be in a future that we don't even recognize, that we won't even recognize. And the bodies that they're going to put us in, the machine bodies, are not going to be crude. They're going to be like top notch. This is going to feel like a normal body kind of thing. And I think it's something that we can't even conceive at this current point in time.
What's that movie where they put people, it's digitized onto chips, and then they implant chip in the C-spine?
The Matrix?
No. It's called The Sleeve.
I don't think I've seen that one.
A movie.
I'm thinking Altered Carbon now, but not Altered Carbon.
Altered Carbon, yes, that's correct. Altered Carbon.
Altered
yes.
Carbon?
I haven't seen that one.
Yes, Altered Carbon, yes.
That's Netflix. It's pretty good.
That is quite what you are now
consciousness
talking about, Joe. Yes, but I don't know. There's, I think, within the realm of Ready Player One.
Jannie's favorite movie.
I watched it after a year.
Say again?
Joe hasn't watched Ready Player One after a year. I've been begging him.
You're kidding me.
You see, Shaq Driller brings a good point. Sorry, Jannie. Shaq Driller, see, 30 years ago, we couldn't conceive doing what we're doing now. That's true. Think about 30 years ago, before the internet, like, wow. And that's just in 30 years. Now, again, I don't think this tech is going to be available within our lifetime, like I said. What I'm saying is, the doubts that Herman has, I think those doubts are going to be, like, for the humans of the future, they're not going to be doubting it. They're going to be excited. They're going to be like, yeah, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to get into my machine body and link up and be. Imagine that. Like, the possibilities are endless. And I know it sounds like I'm advocating for it, but I'm just in terms of complete sci-fi imagination here. You'd be constantly linked to the internet. You be connected with this is Jannie's wet dream here. To be connected to everything.
But I want to add to this. So this company, Nectome, that started this process called vitrifixation, right? They reckon by 2045, 25 years from now, they will be able to have successfully preserved the biomolecules of a brain and reactivate it in digital
Okay,
space.
no, but
Okay,
you see, now
Jannie,
that's
sorry.
zombie. That's
hold
zombie-like
on.
stuff.
Yeah. Jannie, I'm sorry. We can't even get to Mars yet. All right?
We're
We'll
working
be
on
on
that.
Mars at that
We
time.
can't
We will
even
be
get
in
to Mars
at
yet.
that time.
No. Hold on. You see,
The
now
space
again, the
shuttle
ethnic.
program had to be shut down. They're shooting people up with an
Hold on.
old freaking Vostok rocket back into space like in
Yeah, but
1960.
don't
Hold
worry.
on.
Don't worry.
Hold
Elon
on.
Musk's got this.
There's a very important thing here. You said reactivate. Okay, so someone is dead, you reactivate them.
Yeah.
That's zombie-like, and that's also again
Restart them.
playing God. Now you are reviving
Define a
someone. What if
zombie.
that person doesn't want to be alive?
No, yeah, I know. You're asking a lot of questions that we can have a whole stream on answering because how do you decide to die? Who decides you die when your brain is
Okay.
not activated? Like we
Have
haven't
you
even
guys-
spoken about that yet.
Okay, fine,
So-
fair enough. Fair enough. There's a movie, I think it's on Netflix with Keanu Reeves, where he had. Sorry,
Johnny Mnemonic. Not that.
I don't know. Where
Guys,
his
give me 5 minutes quickly. I'm just
Cool.
going to have a smoke quickly. I need
Okay, cool.
a human grown tobacco nicotine.
no worries. So there's a movie now, right? Well, I think it's on Netflix, if I'm not mistaken. Keanu Reeves' new movie, where he is like a biotech kind of person. He's a scientist or whatever, engineer, and he has an accident. Okay, he has with his family. His wife, his 3 daughters die, and he's found a way to take the brain, right, map it out, clone it, all that stuff. Then he takes DNA and all that stuff from his family, he clones them, and then he basically re-implants the memories, and he's even able to erase some of the memories, and just, it's as if they never died. And they basically come back to life, and they as if nothing happened, and blah blah blah. Now, obviously, there is a side effect to this, and the movie goes on the whole moral exploration. Very good movie. But, going back, and the reason why I bring this up is because the moment you said reactivate the brain, I was like, that's exactly what I thought of. There's a lot of, unless this person signed a contract before they died in their will or whatever the case may be, like some people have done, like if I die, freeze my brain, and if the tech comes, if we catch up with tech, then you can revive me, fine. I have no issue with that. But if you're going to take a brain that is not for that and start reviving, because there's sick people out there, all right, and start reviving, that's an issue for me. That's all I'm trying to say. Like, let's not start reviving people that don't want to be revived.
I mean, so this company, so obviously this vitrifixation process is like this process that they have. It's like not a cryopreservation process, but it glossifies the brain so that they can obviously now capture it, though, right?
Yeah.
That's a one-way thing if you're alive and you do this process, because you die. So they don't do it on people that's alive. So my assumption is, and it's not written here, is as many rich people do, they go and cryogenically preserve themselves with the hope that in future we can defrost you, like Han Solo, and then you're alive again. But that tech doesn't exist, though, right? So but what these guys are obviously doing is they're offering you something different. They're offering you that plus the fact that you're not now stuck in your body, because your body eventually ages and dies. Yeah. So even if you do sign this thing to say, okay, cool, get it from the vault, if I die, I have a do not resuscitate, but I also have a please back up box tick, though, right? Which means you get preserved, you go to this company and they back you up, right? So what these guys are saying is that by 2045, they will be able to restore a backup. They haven't defined what it means yet, because I have lots of questions on that. Do they restore me into a Ready Player One oasis where I live in this virtual world? Do they restore me in 2100 potentially, where the world is such a smart world where you can interact with holograms and I'm a hologram in this real world? Do they restore me into a new cyborg body? There's lots of things that we can talk about there, and that's interesting. But then again, there's a new law that we have now not created yet, is how do you die? Can I opt to die? Because today in most countries it's not legal. You can commit suicide, I guess, but I mean, it's not, there's no euthanasia type of thing in all the countries and whatever. So what does digital euthanasia look like? Like we haven't solved that problem yet either. So, but this company, Nectome, believe that by 2045, they will be able to restore a backup. I don't know who's backup.
But Nectome haven't met the ANC government yet, so.
Well, like I can honestly say that anything to do with biotech and ANC in China, I'm not going to trust. The
thing is, China is currently the leading country when it comes to biotech research, and a lot of the technology that we are seeing now in the medical field currently is built and created within China, designed and developed in the West, but built and created in China. There's more startups currently working within China and Hong Kong currently because I think in a way we must look at this. Where does the moral ethics comes in? I said to Jannie earlier, I want him to come with me to the Hong Kong Electronic Fair to see what technology really is. How far have we really gone with technology? What you see in the gadget shops, what you see in the computer shop is still light years behind what is really available out there. Okay. We can take a simple thing, as we've spoken now about cells and human beings and who we are, Jannie, and we've talked about mapping the brain. But yes, we are eventually heading to that. All right. We will get to Mars. We will probably colonize Mars. We will probably go and set up mines on the moon. All right. So there's a lot of things that might happen. But the question is, what is the human capability? All right. A thing that you create is only as good as its creator. Isn't there going to be a point, Jannie, where our intelligence is literally going to run out? Even with AI, it can only learn as much as the capability of the human that's behind it. Am I right?
The interpretation of it, because the last thing we want is an AI model or whatever to learn something that we can't explain. And we've seen that. We've seen it do things that we can't explain, and then we try and figure it out. But are we at the point of having that Skynet yet? I don't think we are. We're very far off that. The compute technology that doesn't exist.
Yes,
it's
you guys are so disappointing, man. There's no zombie apocalypse yet. There's no Terminator apocalypse yet. Like, is there anything exciting happening in this biotech field? Seriously.
I think what we will see. I think what we will see, Joe. We're joking about this, but I think what we will see is in biotech in the future is that we are going to use mRNA. And I do believe the mRNA vaccine is that we are seeing now is the first step towards a genetic modification of certain things for certain viruses. Look, if they can create a vaccine against HIV, I believe that would be the best thing next to sliced bread. All right, that is a dire need. An answer to a real pandemic that's currently in the world. We have problems with diseases like tuberculosis, Ebola. Cancer. Currently, we have
cancer.
Yes, if we can get biotech, and it is moving in that direction, but due to laws and regulations, it is slowed down. Right, and then we get back to the dark side. These guys that are doing these things in the backyards. Yes, the big pharma companies are probably going to pick up on the good things and incorporate it into a law-structured scientific thing. But what I foresee is I don't think maybe in 150 years from now we'll have brain transplants and all those things. When Chris Dr. Chris Barnard did the first heart transplant. It was deemed impossible, yet he did it, and it was successful. Today, it's a norm, right? Organ transplants are norm. Um, I've seen advances in the medical industry. Uh, when I started in 2009 as a first responder to what we have today in the medical industry, there has been light years of jumps ahead um, within certain research. Um, Today, diabetes, they are now looking at a medication that diabetes will be eventually eradicated. And that's what they are looking for. And that is where biotech comes in. But the problem is, in whose hands are this? Now, let's forget about the garage guys. All right, they are a problem, but I do think they are building a nuclear bomb that they are going to blow themselves up with. They'll eradicate themselves. But the problem is, we now need to look at governments, and governments eventually, let's face it, in most of the technology that we see in medicine comes either directly from war or war-related research, right?
Yeah.
Biological, chemical. Um, Linnell, actually, last night we were talking about it. She asked me a question: how much of the medicine or medical knowledge that we have today actually came out of the concentration camps during World War II or Nazi Germany? And a lot of people don't know is a lot of that knowledge that we have today actually comes from research that was done on the Jews, vaccinations, research into
Yep.
vaccinations, research into certain medical experiments that was done on the Jews. It comes from that. And for some reason, I do think the strides that we will see in the future will not be focused on actually saving me and you from a disease. It will be a military compound. It will be focused on keeping soldiers alive on the battlefield, be it through nanotech, be it through
Super
augmentation,
soldiers.
yeah, through that. And that will eventually come to the public. Look, let's face it, most of the technology that you have in front of you today was either developed by DARPA or one of these companies, Lockheed Martin. A lot of people think, oh, Lockheed Martin just builds airplanes. A lot of the communication technology that we have today comes from Lockheed Martin, comes from DARPA, comes from research companies. So I do believe, and the question now we should ask is, which government in the world now currently controls the biggest research into biotech? And we all know who it is. And that is where the danger lies. Will it be used for good,
China.
or will it be used for bad? Right.
Bad.
And that's not necessarily. I do believe um, we will see a change, but the strides that's going to be made in the field of agriculture in the future. I would like to do the prediction, not a predicament. Yes, I am in a predicament because I'm a farmer in South Africa. um, I
Yeah.
want to do a prediction um, that what we will see in food production within the next 5 years will not be the same as what we see today. There are major changes, and that is thanks to biotech. Guys using computer modeling to create better plants through hybridization, crossbreeding, selection, and also how to protect the gene pools of certain species. Um, will it be good enough for the human population to sustain itself? Will it be does will it have enough sustenance to keep us going? That is the question we need to ask. Because if you look at the sustenance today, a hamburger that you ate 20 years ago made you full. And let's face it, most of the hamburgers that you eat today, you can eat one now, and within 2-3 hours, you eat again.
Mm.
And that's because it's a lack of certain amino acidic compounds, certain natural compounds that was removed. Now, when I did my science study, and as you guys will see behind me on my late book, there's just biology books and stuff. That's what I read constantly. We call them racehorse. in the maize in mazes. We have these brilliant mazes. They produce 20 tons and up per hectare, which is brilliant for the farmer. But the problem is, once they started with the hybridization of these plants and putting in the gene editing for the BT and the Roundup Ready gene, they had to give something away. And one problem is sustenance. Now they have to, and if you go and look at maize today, on the bag, it says added vitamins. Why? Why? If I take
it's being enriched.
If you buy maize, go and look what it says on. It says added vitamins A, B, and D. Now, a plant in its natural form already has these vitamins in it. That is why, yeah.
Sorry, John. I'm going to make myself sound like an idiot. But when I saw that, I just thought that it meant that they added more vitamins to make it stronger.
Like our pop is better than your pop or whatever. That's
I didn't know that when they said added vitamins, like there wasn't any vitamins, so we added the vitamins that were missing. I thought it was just like, oh, we've made it even stronger now for you.
No.
Like
that's what I thought. You're not alone, Joe.
Joe, there's actually an experiment that people should do. All right, when you go to like your local shop, all right, you find this. They have like these seeds of vegetables they sell. All right. Now, most of these vegetable seeds that you find in these small little packets, I think it's either from one of the companies. It's like these green little packets. All right, contains 10 or 20 seeds. Those are very, very old varieties of maize or beans that people don't. The seed companies don't worry if people create their own seeds from them. All right. And you plant it and you give them fertilizer and you start eating those. And this is the questions we should ask. All right. Why is the sustenance that you get from those older varieties of maize, green beans, and everything better? As I said to you, even when we do an F1 hybrid, on the one side, we are putting in beauty, but we are taking intelligence away. All right. We need tonnage. We need fruit. We need plant material. And it needs to be a very beautiful round tomato with nice green leaves at the top. And it mustn't have a black spot because the tunny at Woolies doesn't want a tomato that is pear-shaped or has a bit of a crooked look to it. But that is how nature intended. Now we created this perfect tomato, but we've taken away its intelligence. Once again, I'm asking, what are we eating? And people should start asking those questions. And don't come and tell me, oh, it is organically grown. Boo-hoo-hoo. Don't buy organically grown unless you've grown it yourself. Because that is the biggest scam, in my opinion.
That's an interesting point.
Well, guys, I do have to end it here. We've gone an hour and a half.
We're just getting started.
I do have to end it here, unfortunately. And I think it's a very good point to end it. I would like to continue this discussion. I think there's a lot more that we actually didn't cover. There's still, augmented reality, which we were, I think, about to touch on, the gene editing, the bioenergy we didn't touch, the bioplastics we didn't touch, bioprinting, which is something I definitely wanted to chat with Jannie about that, and even biosensors. So there's still a lot of biotech that we didn't touch on. So I'm happy to have this discussion again. No, not at all. I think this was a very enlightening. I mean, that's why we let it happen for an hour and a half, because it was interesting. Also, Mark asked if he can join the discussion. Mark, send me an email, and then next time we do, because it won't be the next Tech Tuesday, we'll have to do a part 2 on this once we're done with the Tech Tuesday series that Jannie and I are busy with. But we will have a follow-up on this, and then you can join us. So email me, Joe Emilio, comedian@gmail.com. Email me, and I'll keep you updated with when it is and stuff like that, and you can happily join us. It's not a problem. 4 of us can have a nice chat about biotech and what's to come. And I think it's going to be a very interesting chat as well. I was totally fascinated. Don't feel bad, Herman. I let it go for an hour and a half because the conversation was great. So having said that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much. I mean, like, we had quite a good attention from viewers. It was great for you guys to join us. The chats were on fire. Thank you so much. Thank you, Herman, for also making yourself available for tonight and all the insightful information that you gave us. It was very interesting, and we learned things, man. I didn't know that added vitamins meant this is cuck, and we tried to make it better. Now I know.
Although they will not confirm nor deny it.
Of course not. Of course not.
I'm sure.
So in closing, very quickly, you each got 60 seconds. Is there something you want to say to the audience before we sign off? Herman, you can go first.
I just want to say thank you, Joe and Jannie, first of all, for bringing me on to a topic, as I said earlier to Jannie, that is very, very dear to my heart and actually very close to me as a farmer. You know, we are all affected by biotech one way or the other. And especially in the agricultural sector, we see the strides that has been done for the good, but also we see the bad popping out slowly. As we see that plants are losing certain sustenance and things, we do see that. For the viewers out there, be cautious and always be smart when you read something. Stay away from things that wants to augment you or change you. Drink medicine that you know will work, and don't buy something out of a garage unless it's an apple.
Yeah.
Nice. Jannie?
Pun intended. Thanks, Joe. This was an interesting topic. Thanks, Herman, also for joining on short notice. And I appreciate the conversation we had pre to this because it kind of just blew my mind. I think, Joe, I want to leave us. I'm looking forward to, obviously, part 2 of this. I want to leave us for something, though, because Herman said it a few times. We are now looking at ways of obviously increasing our lifespan and doing all these things. The world was projected to have 10 billion people by 2050 when we did the study in 2000 when we had only 6.5 billion people. But by 2015, we had 7.5 billion people. So we were running, that curve was picking up a lot faster than what we thought. So how are we dealing with this influx of humans that now can't die? We have this cool genetically modified superfood for them because you take one bite and you're full for a week. Where does it leave us? Let's talk about that in part 2, I think, eh?
Yes, absolutely. All right, cool. We'll talk about that, ladies and gentlemen, part 2. That will happen after the series is done. We still have a few more episodes of this series. Jannie, what is the next topic again?
It is May the 4th, and then it is entertainment, and then it is communication.
Yes, there we go. So
robotics, entertainment, communication.
Okay, so next time is May the 4th, though. That's the thing. Okay, cool. So, ladies and gentlemen, I can't believe I forgot about that. We're taking a bit of a break from the series, and we're going to talk about, because one of our Tech Tuesdays is actually on May the 4th. Yeah! We're going to be having a Star Wars edition of Tech Tuesday, where we're going to be discussing which is the best way to watch Star Wars. And did you notice some things that were in Star Wars that maybe you didn't realize? For example, Star Wars, Jannie might disagree with me on this, but Star Wars at the time when it was released was actually a big breakthrough in film industry. And we'll be talking about all the things that George Lucas and his team and creators were able to do during that time that really elevated the film industry. Things that weren't possible at that time, he made possible, almost like a Steve Jobs of the film industry.
Yeah. Of all the coolest thing in Star Wars is R2-D2. And nobody can deny that. Come on, guys.
Well, if you disagree, let us know. Let us know next time, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be seeing you on May the 4th for the next Tech Tuesday. Very much looking forward to it. I might dress up for that one, Jannie. I might actually dress up.
What are you gonna do?
That's going to be a surprise. That's going to be a surprise. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys again to my guests tonight, Jannie and Herman. This really was a fantastic conversation. I cannot wait for the next one. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I I will be back on Thursday. I'm still going to make the event. It's going to be late night chat. I'll make the event tomorrow. So I'll see you then. And if I don't see you then, stay safe, be kind to one another, and I'll see you at the next one. Cheers.
Cheers. May the force be with you.